Hello, this is Workbench. I am Seth Werkheiser along with Bill Meese, two people who work in music and love technology, and we just want to share some of our nerdy knowledge to help make your work easier and more manageable. Bill, welcome back.
Hi, Seth. How's it going?
It is going wonderful. We just had a blizzard.
We did. Well, some of us did.
Yes.
Those of us out on the east end of Long Island actually got the blizzard, where most of my friends and colleagues to the west in the city in Jersey didn't get much at all. So,
but our friends in Boston got hit.
They did, and they're probably still digging out. So
I believe so.
Anyway, how's your week going?
Week's going well.
Yeah,
it's blurring together. Lots of fun technological stuff that I'm sure we could talk about in an episode down the line.
Yeah,
but technology. Yes.
You're doing some traveling as usual.
Doing some traveling. I'm in the New York City area at the moment, and I'll be out on Long Island, out your way, quite soon, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool. This show's gonna be a good one. It's about some basic stuff that people probably use or are familiar with on a daily basis, but might not know of a few tricks we've figured out along the way. And some of the highlights are going to be how and why, more importantly, to set up a simple one-page website, and then we're going to talk about some Twitter tools, since that's become a pretty big powerhouse in the social networking arena for both small businesses and bands and personal.
Everyone talking about Twitter.
Everybody, yeah.
Yep.
You know what I love about Twitter? Not to jump into it, but is that it's a social network that's been constant since it launched. And it really hasn't gone away or come back. It's always been there. And it really hasn't changed that much either, which is interesting, because usually in order to stick around that long, you need to change and update, and they really haven't. So,
right. Biggest change I've seen is probably, seeing all those big photos in your timeline.
That, and they've just the UI, just the whole presentation and how it looks. And,
yep.
You can see where they're putting their time into.
Oh yeah. So let's talk about the simple one-page website kind of stuff.
Right, and why would anyone want to do that? Why do we need another website launched in 2015?
Sure. Now I wrote about this a little bit recently. In that, if you're a band, if you're a business, whatever, putting your video on YouTube, which is great. Like, there's 8 gajillion people on YouTube, so great. I want the possibility of 8 gajillion people to see my video. That'd be cool. An idea for a simple one-page website sometimes can be to, with your social media following, this, that, or the other, your email list, you could point people to your little website, and the focus then is on you, instead of all the noise and clutter and a BuzzFeed video about 10 awesome cats that like to play with toys or something like that. So
right.
There's that, video-wise, focus. And then also, too, if you're a small business, a band, a venue, whatever you might do, a tattoo artist or whatever, having a simple one-page website with your own domain name, it's about you. There's not 8,000 things going on a website, like Facebook, for instance. To distract people that might end up on your website. So
you're saying that if you're starting a small business, or you have a small business and you want to update your web presence, just having a Facebook page is not enough, right?
Right, because just a couple years ago, Facebook was like, yeah, set up your small business website with Facebook. Hey, there's 8 gajillion people on Facebook, which was great, because you would send out these updates and everybody would see them. And then Facebook was like, well, wait a second. Now not everyone can see them. So you have 1,000 followers or likes on Facebook, and you send out an update, and they're like, great, 8 people saw it. That's
right.
Kind of a bummer.
Right. So what do? I start a business, or I want to upgrade my website. Where do I start? What are my options?
Start with a domain name.
Right.
I recommend hover.com. So you can go there, buy a quick, easy domain name. They're about geez, these days about $11 a year or so.
Yeah, and up depending on what you're buying.
Right. If you're buying a fancy pants one, yeah, it'll be a little more. So you do that, and then you can set yourself up. Or if you go to Squarespace, you could buy a domain name through them. And
yes.
That sets up. Squarespace is probably the easiest, simplest one, all in one place kind of thing.
Agreed.
Yeah. It's all right there. Push button, drag and drop. It's easy.
And I got to say, I know we've spoken a lot about Squarespace, offline.
We have.
And I got to say, since they launched their new Squarespace 7 interface, it has come a long way.
Really?
Because, I do not come from a web design background. I do not come from an IT or networking background, and a lot of that was Greek to me, and it still is to some extent.
Sure.
But Squarespace 7 made it really simple for me to get what I wanted, which was just exactly what we're talking about, a simple one-page website.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't, and Squarespace is what, $7 or $8 a month?
Yeah, you can pay yearly and get $8 a month.
Okay.
Or you can pay monthly, which is $10 a month. And I know that they sponsor every podcast ever. So if you listen to other podcasts, everyone has a code or some sort of coupon thing that you can plug in and get $8 for the first month or so.
Right, to try out. Yeah. Another probably a free way to do it is to go with Tumblr. Now you can with Tumblr there's a gajillion themes with them, and you can kind of hack it together. It's not as easy to do as with Squarespace, but it's possible. You can change the colors, fonts, this, that, and the other, and you can use a domain name with it. So, which is really cool. And then that way, again, you're not paying $8, $10 a month.
No, it's free. Unless you buy a theme for whatever they sell them for.
Yeah, there's a couple on there, $20 themes, $50 themes. But you could do a lot with that. And there are some decent designers out there that actually make themes. So you could probably hook up with someone from there, find someone online that could help you out and do that.
You only use Tumblr at this point, right?
No. I have a Tumblr.
Oh, that's right. You use the Site44, right?
Yes, and that'll be the next one we talk about. Site44. What it is it works with your Dropbox account, and it makes folders inside your Dropbox folder web pages. And they're just static web pages, nothing fancy. For a nerd like me, who's been playing with HTML stuff since 1995, it's fine. It's easy. I love it. I have complete control over it. So the barrier to entry is a little higher on that.
Yeah, with these three examples, Squarespace, Tumblr, and Site44, you've kind of outlined beginner, intermediate, and expert, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Squarespace being the beginner, Tumblr, intermediate, and Site44 being the expert. And then when I say expert, it's not impossible. And for those who don't know what Site44 is at all, it's probably the most minimal approach you can take to starting a website. They really don't offer or even want to offer.
There's no templates. Yeah.
Templates, colors, nothing. It's just a system that supports your series of folders that make up your website, and all that is just blank sheets of HTML code.
Right.
So think of it like your MySpace page back in the day, where everyone learned HTML.
They did. Yep.
To customize your MySpace page.
Yep, and it's really, I really encourage anyone out there to try. There are so many learn how to code HTML websites out there. Oh,
Code Academy is the best one.
Okay, yeah,
I've done a few of those, and if you have the desire to start coding from scratch, whether it's HTML, CSS, or anything else, that's the place to start. And
good stuff to know too. Just, if you're not doing something great, really hardcore like Site44. Learning the HTML stuff will help with Tumblr. It'll help with Squarespace. It'll help with a lot of things down the road. So, nice skill to have.
Yeah, it's not a bad skill to have on your resume in 2015, no matter where you are in your career.
Right, absolutely. Because in 2015, there's a lot of people who don't have it on their resume. So, might as well put it on there.
And I'll just add, too, for a reason to have a one-stop landing page, if you will, And I've heard the argument like, oh, wait, I don't need a website. I have a Twitter. I don't need a website. I have a Facebook. If you're any kind of professional, I don't care what you're doing, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a skateboard shop, any kind of retail, any kind of business, you need a landing page. You can't just point people to your Twitter account where you're tweeting about, you and your kids at the park. You can't point them towards your Facebook page where, your mom is commenting on your new jacket you bought.
And there's chat things popping up and new messages.
Right. Having a one-page site allows people to start from the top and work their way down. That doesn't mean you can't link every social network under the sun on your web page. A lot of people do that. That's fine, but you got to give them some place to start, and
Sure.
You got to make it simple, and you got to make it super user friendly. Because if not, people have a 2-second attention span these days, and if they get lost for more than 2 seconds, they're gone. So make it simple. Don't overthink it.
Right.
And
that stuff too. That's a URL. That's a link that you put in your Twitter profile or in your email footer when you send stuff out. It's these like little links accidentally out there on the internet that people might randomly click, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know this person did this stuff." So
right, and more importantly, it's important that you can tell people where to go to check out your stuff. But even more importantly, it gives other people the chance to tell other people where to go to check out your stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. That's huge. Yeah, hey, just go. Perfect example is Skull Toaster. Like people that aren't on Twitter, you can't tell people to look up Skull Toaster on Twitter. They don't get it.
Right. What's the @ symbol? What does that mean?
Exactly. So go to skulltoaster.com. And that's a simple, easy page that I set up with Site 44, and it's just like, hey, this is what it is,
right?
And that's it. So they can take the information from there. So, absolutely, great point.
So the takeaway is, if you don't have a domain name, go to Hover. You can buy it through Squarespace. You can even go old school and get it through GoDaddy. Although please don't. That's my least favorite.
No, no GoDaddy. Do Hover. Hover's nice and beautiful, and it's a nice site. Yeah,
and their customer support is really great.
Yes.
So get your domain. Choose whether or not you want to go through Site 44, Squarespace, or Tumblr. And there's other ones out there too, like Verb, and,
yes.
and just Google. Google. Website builder. You'll see dozens. And get started.
But those are three that we definitely have experience with. So check them out.
Look more professional in 2015.
Absolutely.
All right, so we want to talk about Twitter because it's a social network and a tool and a powerhouse that Seth and I have been using for a very long time. And when I say a long time, I mean 2006, which is when they launched.
That was a while ago.
It was, and it's my longest running social network. I haven't been on Facebook that long. I didn't use MySpace even that long.
Right.
Or Friendster or anything else years ago.
I shut down my Facebook like 2 years ago.
Yeah, that'll be its own episode.
Yep. Yes.
But real quick, when me and Seth started, well, let me back up. Seth showed me Twitter. He sent me an invite, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" And I remember I was working that day, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is like the new MySpace or whatever, and the new Facebook." And we signed up, and I signed up with a couple of other people, and there was like 4 or 5 followers, and I really didn't think much of it until I started doing things like and namely going to shows or listening to music, and I'll never forget when me and Seth were tweeting or texting each other back and forth saying, "Oh my God, we can live review shows with this."
Yep.
If as long all we need is more people on it.
Yep.
So I remember thinking, like, wow, this would be awesome if all of our friends were on it.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Between our two, everyone, the two of us follow. I mean, there's people talking about shows all the time that they're at, records that they're listening to, that they're buying. It's just bands they found on Bandcamp, this, that, or the other. It's amazing. It's a great tool.
Right. So there are plenty of different ways to access Twitter. Some are great, some aren't that great, some have come and gone. But the best place to start is twitter.com itself. Twitter, the web portal, not mobile. I mean, you can get it on mobile, you can get it on iPad, you can get it on anything these days. But twitter.com is what I want to talk about first, and that has come a real long way. Like there was a huge chunk of time where I wasn't even using Twitter.com because other apps and other tools allowed me to do more than what the website offered.
Yeah.
But things like their search has gotten really, really great. Trending topics, you can drill it down by region. It's come a real long way.
You do a lot of neat stuff with just the search in general. It's amazing.
Yeah, especially if you want to find out what's going on. Like, I can't tell you how many times like I've heard a siren in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I've searched Twitter, like,
right,
police or the street or whatever I might think it is. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it does.
I was in a Friendly's in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, and the power went out, and my phone still worked over 3G whatever, and I just searched power outage East Stroudsburg, and like I found a newspaper article from the local newspaper and said someone drove into like a power station, something or other. Like, I knew that in like seconds.
You're like East Stroudsburg's Walter Cronkite. I
am, yes. It was neat.
But one of Twitter's own features that they kind of do the best with is the Discover tab. And you can get this on mobile, but I'm talking about the one on the webpage. And that just allows you to see what's happening now, tailored for you. It displays who follows who favorited what tweet. It's pretty much stylized stalking.
It's a good way to put it. Yeah,
it really is. Like,
yep.
If you're curious what people on your feed and people that you follow and people who follow you are doing, like, whether or not they like this or favorited that, that's a good way to do it. I don't always use that, quite honestly, but I'll stumble across it every now and then. Probably because I just don't care.
That's okay. When you're bored, it's fun.
Right, and with a toddler, you're never bored. You're never
full-time
bored.
Job, yeah.
Yeah. There's also a tool on there called Who to Follow, which is primarily based off of your Twitter bio. It matches you up with other people with similar user bios. It's pretty much I think it's the same thing. Like, remember WeFollow back in the day?
I don't actually.
There was a service called WeFollow. I think it's actually still around, but it would do that for you. Like, it would show you who's on Twitter based on what interest, what industry, etc. And you could sign up for WeFollow and then follow people through there.
Sure.
I don't know if Twitter bought that out or whatever, but you can do that right in Twitter now, which is pretty cool.
The best piece of advice I ever got about the whole following thing was from you, about, don't follow the New York Mets on Twitter. Follow the beat writers that write about the New York Mets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stuff like that. So many times, don't follow your favorite band. Follow the people that are in the band. Find them one way or the other.
Yeah. The bass player usually has a lot of great things to say.
Yeah, totally.
No, but it's true. I mean, a really good example of that on my end is the Black Label Society.
Okay.
Is one of the bands that I work with. And, Black Label Society, their Twitter account, I'm not even sure the last time I saw it, but you follow Zach Wilde on Twitter and you're going to get stuff all day long that's, purely Zach, purely intense and all him. So that's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing I don't like about Twitter.com is they really don't give you a lot of good access to your lists.
Right.
And why don't you tell people what a Twitter list is, first of all?
A list is kind of a curated, like, instead of following 800 people, you can add certain accounts to a list. And that way on your main feed, you're not swimming in updates. So then you could just go check out a list of whatever. Like, if it's sports, you could add like ESPN and NFL and blah, 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 and make that a list. That way in your main feed, you're not seeing like 800 updates from all these sports Twitter accounts.
Do you use lists a lot?
Not really. Nope.
I do.
Do you?
Oh, yeah.
Nope.
Back to the point we just made about following the guys in the band.
Right.
I actually have a Twitter list of all the band members I work with.
Wow. Cool.
So I can just go into that list and it'll give me a real-time snapshot of what they're all talking about and, and when.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and I do the same thing for the Jets and the Mets, the bands, magazines. I'm just reading them off. Music news, music writers that I follow. A New York list, which is tweets. It's not tweets. It's people who I've chosen to put on the list that tweet about New York. So I think I have New York Magazine, Gothamist, stuff like that.
Right, and again, I mean that's the stuff. Because then you don't have to follow them individually, and then your entire Twitter timeline is just filled with all sorts of craziness all the time.
Right. I actually went through my whole list a couple of months ago, and I do this every now and then. And instead of having everybody on my main feed, I'll just put everyone into lists.
Nice.
And you can make them all private. You can make them public or private.
Yep.
And I like mine private just because it's mine.
Sure. Yeah.
And you can curate what you want to follow and when.
Yep.
This way, if you want to spend your morning, reading your local news list, you can do that.
Right. It's all nice and segmented.
So with that said, Twitter.com isn't the best to do that with.
Well, right. But, I mean, a lot of people listening have smartphones. So on the Twitter app, I mean, that's set up really nicely with this.
Right. Speaking of lists, the best... web app you can use for lists is TweetDeck, and I believe Twitter bought them recently. Maybe not recently, but they did buy them.
At one point I think TweetDeck was a standalone, but Twitter bought them. Yeah, pretty sure.
The best thing about TweetDeck is that it's free, and you don't have to pay for it. And
right.
You can schedule tweets, and that's a whole trick in itself. And there's a lot of tools you can use to work Twitter. And one of the main features that's pretty uniform across them all is the ability to schedule tweets. And a little bit about that is that if you're a social media manager or even someone who pumps out a lot of content, even if you're tweeting about nothing all day long, if you have 5 or 6 tweets that you want to get out, you don't want to send them back to back because that's just going to annoy the hell out of anyone reading it. And it's going to clog their feed, and it's going to make them less likely to want to hear what the hell you have to say.
Right.
So if you schedule them out, even if they're 30 minutes apart, it'll retain those followers instead of scaring them away because you're live tweeting the Grammys or something.
Right. Right. It's also helpful too if you're busy, running your shop. You're a photographer. You're this. You're not always on your phone or in front of your computer. You could take Sunday night and schedule a bunch of tweets about your thing that you do, your website or a special or this or that. That way, I mean, it gets done. It doesn't, you don't have to pick up your phone. Oh yeah, I didn't tweet about this lately. Well, if you schedule it, you schedule it and forget it almost. Right.
There's actually my Canadian counterpart. His name is Eric Alper.
Mm-hmm.
You can find him on Twitter at that Eric Alper. He does that. He's kind of a Twitter maniac. I think he's up to 500,000 followers.
Oh my!
But he'll do that. He'll take his whole weekend and he'll plan out his entire week of social media updates. And
wow,
God bless him for being able to do that. I can't, but to each his own. But
yes,
that's the way he does that. Like he'll spend a whole weekend curating the whole week, and then he won't touch it all week long.
Right. That makes sense.
Which is kind of cool. Anyway, on TweetDeck you can do that, and even better, you can do that with photos.
Yes, that happened just not too long ago, right?
I guess you would know better than me.
You
always thought it was there.
Yeah.
But along the same lines of following different lists, TweetDeck is kind of known for their multiple columns, and columns don't just have to be lists. They can be anything. They can be your home feed, mentions. A list, or they can also be custom searches or anything. And I use it a lot because when I send a press release, I want to monitor who picked it up and who's talking about it.
Right.
So I'll set up 2 or 3 columns with pretty common search terms based around what the press release was about, and I'll just keep it up there for a few days, and I'll go back in periodically and just kind of review it. It'll give me a very a focused search of exactly what I'm trying to find, and you'd be surprised. I've found some really good pieces of coverage that didn't come through my Google alerts, and they didn't come through, the editor sending me the link, God forbid. But
they're busy, Bill.
I know, but I found it that way. That's one way to do it. So if you're any kind of business person that has to monitor anything on Twitter, like, this is probably the best way to do it, in my opinion.
I've also used a saved search of like a URL of Bandcamp, and then like with 3 retweets and a keyword of metal. And
oh yeah. So you're drilling down even further there.
Yeah, so that way, like, I'm only finding tweets from people that have tweeted something about metal on Bandcamp, and it got retweeted 3 times, which means, hey, it must be good. And
Right.
I found a lot of great bands that way.
Right, and you're talking about the drop down, like, preferences for each column.
Oh yeah, you can get really deep with this stuff.
Where you can search very detailed
Yeah.
pieces of content. You can even search, like, every time a particular person tweets something. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but it is possible.
Yeah, you can follow people, and you can make a column of their favorites, I believe, too.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, just seeing all this cool stuff that people are favoriting.
So I would recommend TweetDeck if you're an avid Twitter user, use a lot of lists.
Right.
Search is important to you. TweetDeck is definitely one to check out.
Yep.
And the next one is one I use primarily, which is Buffer. And I like Buffer because they're a small business. They're very transparent. Their customer service is amazing. Their analytics are great, and you can curate different schedules for when you want to pump content out there. For example, your weekday schedule will be different than your weekend schedule.
Right.
So you can
right, and that you just add content from all over the web or whatever, and you don't have to schedule it like, okay, I want this to go up at 10 a.m. and this. It like kind of does it for you.
Right. You preset your schedule.
Yeah.
So you're just pumping content in, and it will just schedule itself to what you've already preset. And with this, you can not, it's not only just for Twitter, but you can also do Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, app.net, if anyone still uses that, and Google Plus. Ditto.
Yeah, it's powerful.
There's two pricing tiers, which is free, which is what I use, and $10 a month, which gets you way more analytics, way more measurement and metrics.
And if you juggle more than one account, it's helpful. It lets you do that too.
Right. Yeah, it's totally worth the $10 a month if you need it for that.
Yep.
One thing they offer is a suggestion posts, which I don't know if you've seen that.
No.
It's basically just like cool quotes, hot topics from around the web, and they set it up so that you can pump it into your own buffer very quickly. I am not a fan of that at all. I'm not going to say I've never used it. I've tried it, but to me, it just seems like you're adding to the noise.
Right.
You didn't think of it. You didn't write it. It's not your quote. You're just, talking for no reason. It's like being in a conversation and just making chit chat for like no reason whatsoever. It's like if you're going to post something on the internet, make sure it's offering value to somebody somewhere. Even if it's one person, it's worth it. But if you're retweeting some Nietzsche quote or some Einstein quote, it's like, dude, that's been done. I don't need to do that. Right.
Yeah, there's enough spam accounts out there that are doing that, posing as real people.
Right.
You don't need to add to that.
It's not. This isn't a dig on Buffer. I love them. I use them. I'm
yes.
a very avid user, but it's just that one feature I just cannot get behind. They offer business plans, which I have not used just because I haven't needed to.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the business plans allow you to really dig down into metrics and analytics, which if you're a community manager or you take social networking seriously for your business, there's really no reason not to do it at this point.
For sure. And then Hootsuite.
Yeah, you said you haven't used this in a while, huh?
No, I haven't.
I used
that before I moved to TweetDeck.
Right.
I use TweetDeck primarily now.
I used Hootsuite before I used Buffer, and I liked it. I still like it, and there's still some people in my office that use it, but it just was too much for what I needed it to be.
Yeah.
It's it was like all I needed to do was drive to work, and this was just like a bulldozer. Like, yeah, it'll get me there, but it's really not what it's built for.
Sure.
One thing about them I like is that they offer something called Hootsuite University, and it's a lot like Code Academy, but it's where they teach you how to code. Hootsuite Academy allows you to be certified in social media management. And
wow.
I haven't really dug in on it, but I know it's an accreditation that people do take seriously. From what I've read,
yeah,
I've never seen anyone with it. I don't know anyone who did it, but it is cool that they offer it.
Yeah, totally.
And that you can actually get certified in social media management.
Yeah, and if you're starting out and from nothing, it's worth taking a look at.
Yeah, it's a little bit of resume porn, but whatever.
Sure.
They have really robust business plans, and if that is something, I mean, I'm talking like Coke and Pepsi and like businesses like that, they use Hootsuite.
I think they listen to this podcast.
Of course they do. So shout out to Coca-Cola. Thank you very much. But if you have, if you have a team of social media managers, where everyone needs to be communicating together, and sharing posts, editing posts, this is more along the lines for you. They do have a free plan, but I know from past experience that you can't use a lot of users on the free plan. You got to pay for multi-users. But again, if you're going to jump into Hootsuite, you got to go ready to go, because
right.
It's a huge tool. It's a very, 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 very deep in features, and it will serve you really well if you need something that has a lot of bells and whistles.
Right.
But some of the features are a lot like the rest of them, like scheduling tweets, multiple team members. They have something called the Hootlet, which is a Chrome extension, which allows you to schedule or put content into Hootsuite directly from your browser.
Okay.
So if you're into Chrome extensions, which could be its own show, honestly.
Yeah. Wow, we got a lot of goodies to talk about with that.
Yeah. Say you're looking at a website, you want to share it. The Hootlet Chrome extension will put it right in there, and you can even schedule it right from the extension too.
And Buffer has that too, doesn't it?
They do, yeah. I use that as well.
Cool.
Hootsuite also offers a lot on the resource end. Their blog is really good. Offers a lot of great tips. If you have an RSS feed or anything, follow them. They offer some great content all week long. Their resource library is pretty impressive, honestly. They have webinars, and they even have case studies you can download.
Wow.
And infographics pertaining to different industries. So go check them out, Hootsuite.com.
Cool.
The other one is TweetDeck.com. The other one is Buffer.com. And then Twitter.com, obviously. So I know it's kind of a lot to chew on, but if you're serious about Twitter, any one of those,
right? Yeah, and if you're just starting out and you're like, oh, I know I need to get on Twitter, whatever. Hopefully these couple things kind of point you in the right direction. So,
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So that's it, man. I think that's a good chunk of info for people to chew on.
Absolutely, for a week, to get started looking at stuff. Simple one-page landing pages, a little bit of Twitter action. Yeah, totally.
Cool. So yeah, man. If you don't got anything else, we should close episode 3 out.
Yeah, that sounds good. Send your feedback and questions to hello@workbenchpodcast.com. In our show notes on workbenchpodcast.com, there's a link that you can join our email list. And we have a hashtag too, don't we, Bill?
We do. The hashtag is Workbench Podcast. And if you want to tweet a question or tweet your workflow or tweet something that we may have left out pertaining to any one of the things we talked about, hashtag the tweet with Workbench Podcast, one word. And we'll see it. We'll put it in the show. We can make corrections. Feel free to correct us. I'm sure we left a lot out because those are some serious tools we were talking about.
Yes.
And we definitely didn't go over everything. So if we left out something that you thought was pretty important, feel free to hit us on there.
Yeah, let us know. Maybe we'll feature it in a show down the road. We're also in the iTunes podcast directory.
Yes,
now too.
Finally.
Yes, that was awesome. So you can just go to iTunes or your preferred podcast player and search Workbench Podcast, and you should be able to magically find us. So
right, and you can also go to workbenchpodcast.com.
Yes,
and click the little icon towards the top in the middle, which will take you to our RSS feed. And if you plug that into any podcast player, it will subscribe you.
You can play it right on the web.
You could
subscribe.
It's
so
true.
Many options.
And as always, all of this information will be in the show notes. So head over to workbenchpodcast.com and you can click around all these nifty little tools.
Awesome.
All right,
Good show, Bill.
Seth W., thank you very much for your time, sir.
Absolutely. Let's do this again.
Will do.
Bye.
Bye.